Berlin, April 1945. The capital of the Third Reich is no longer a seat of power, but a burning graveyard of shattered streets, collapsing buildings, and fleeing civilians. Deep beneath the ruins, inside a reinforced concrete shelter, Adolf Hitler spends his final days surrounded not by triumphant generals, but by fear, delusion, and the last remnants of blind loyalty. Above ground, Soviet artillery tightens its grip. Below, the regime devours itself. Around the Führer, the once mighty inner circle fractures under the weight of inevitable defeat. Some attempt escape, others scheme in secret, and a few, incapable of imagining life without the ideology they served, choose death as their final act of devotion. Among the most fanatical is Joseph Goebbels, the architect of the regime's illusions. For 12 years, he had shaped reality into fantasy, turning lies into national truth and mass murder into patriotic duty. In the final days, as Berlin burns and the Reich disintegrates, he refuses every opportunity to flee. To leave would mean admitting the dream was false. Inside the bunker, he transforms the end into theater. One day after Hitler ends his life, Goebbels and his wife make a horrifying decision. Their children will not grow up in a world without National Socialism. While the city collapses above their heads, the 6 children are poisoned in their sleep. Afterward, the couple walk into the ruins and take their own lives. For Goebbels, death is not defeat. It is a final propaganda statement. While fanaticism rules one corner of the collapsing Reich, cold calculation briefly appears in another. Heinrich Himmler, the man who built and commanded the machinery of terror, senses the end approaching and makes a desperate gamble. Responsible for the SS, the Gestapo, and the implementation of the Holocaust, he suddenly tries to abandon the sinking ship. Behind Hitler's back, he quietly seeks contact with Western powers. His goal is not surrender, but negotiation, a separate peace that would allow Germany to continue the fight against the Soviet Union alongside Britain and the United States. He believes ideology might be forgiven in the face of a greater enemy. The plan collapses instantly. The Allies reject the offer outright, and word of the betrayal reaches the bunker. The result is immediate. Himmler is stripped of all rank, declared a traitor, and erased from the political structure he once dominated. Now hunted, the architect of terror becomes a fugitive. Disguised as a low-ranking soldier under a false name, he attempts to vanish among the ruins of defeated Germany. But fate catches him at a British checkpoint. Once identified, he is placed into custody. During a routine medical inspection days later, he bites into a hidden cyanide capsule. Within seconds, the man who sent millions to their deaths collapses lifeless to the floor. He had escaped justice, but not oblivion. In the span of weeks, the Reich loses its dictator, its propagandist, and its executioner. Power evaporates overnight. Loyalty turns into panic. Faith mutates into silence. The Nazi dream, once projected as eternal, dissolves into personal catastrophes. And yet, these were only the first collapses. Others, once among the most powerful men in Europe, were still attempting to bargain, flee, or reinvent themselves as the Third Reich fell apart around them. Among those who believed they could still shape the ending was Hermann Göring. Once the most decorated pilot of the First World War, now bloated with wealth, addiction, and misplaced confidence. As Berlin collapses, he is far from the bunker, sheltered in Bavaria. Interpreting Hitler's isolation as functional incapacity, he sends a telegram requesting permission to assume full leadership of the Reich, citing a previously signed succession decree. But paranoia dominates the bunker. The message is intercepted by Martin Bormann, who frames it as treason. Hitler responds not with clarification, but fury. Göring is stripped of power and ordered arrested. The man who once strutted in ceremonial uniforms now becomes a political criminal overnight. Captured by American forces days later, Göring arrives in custody, richly dressed and strangely relaxed. He believes he can still talk his way into relevance. At Nuremberg, he transforms the courtroom into a stage. Fluent in English, sharp-tongued, and defiant. And he treats the proceedings as a debate rather than judgment. He denies responsibility, shifts blame, rewrites his past, but the documents speak louder than performance. Convicted on all counts, he receives the death sentence. Yet even in defeat, he denies the victors their moment. The night before his execution, he poisons himself in his cell. Once again, a cyanide capsule steals a final act of control from the gallows. While Göring attempts spectacle, another figure chooses disappearance. Martin Bormann, the shadow behind the throne, abandons the bunker during the final breakout attempt in Berlin. Unlike other Nazi leaders, he never sought fame or applause. His power came from paperwork, access, and silence. He decided who saw Hitler, what information reached him, and which rivals were quietly destroyed. When Berlin falls, Bormann leaves no surrender, no confession, no body. For decades, his fate becomes one of history's great mysteries. Rumors place him everywhere: South America, hidden Soviet detention, secret networks of escape. Intelligence agencies chase shadows. Myths flourish. Only in the early 1970s do construction workers uncover human remains near a Berlin railway bridge. Dental records confirm what many suspected, but none could prove. Bormann never escaped. Like so many others, he died in the ruins while chaos swallowed the city. The image of the vanishing puppeteer becomes symbolic. A man who manipulated an empire without ever standing in the spotlight ends his life unseen, unnamed, and unremembered in the moment of collapse. As the Reich disintegrated, some figures attempted to cleanse their legacy rather than erase themselves. One of the most controversial of these was Albert Speer. Unlike the others, Speer did not run or poison himself. He surrendered. And then, at Nuremberg, he did the unthinkable for a senior Nazi official. He expressed remorse. Not full guilt, not detailed confession, but something close enough to appear sincere. It saved his life. Sentenced to 20 years instead of death, Speer later re-emerged as a best-selling author. To the world, he became the good Nazi, the cultured technocrat who claimed ignorance of the camps and slavery that powered his armaments factories. But history would slowly dismantle that narrative, document by document, revealing a man who knew far more than he admitted and benefited from every hidden crime. The Reich was dead, but its architects were still struggling to decide how they would be remembered. While some disappeared and others staged theatrical exits, a few lived on, locked away in silence, memory, and unresolved guilt. One of the strangest cases was Rudolf Hess, once the deputy Führer and one of the earliest believers in National Socialist ideology. Years before Germany's defeat, Hess shocked the world with an act so bizarre it still puzzles historians. He flew alone to Scotland in 1941, claiming he carried a personal mission for peace between Germany and Britain. Instead of diplomacy, he found imprisonment. Dismissed as unstable or delusional, he spent the rest of the war in captivity. At Nuremberg, he appeared confused, often claiming amnesia. The court was unconvinced. Sentenced to life imprisonment, he became the lone permanent inmate of Spandau prison as others were released or died.